Welcome back, guys. It's Nathan from Rook Books here, back again this week with Venusaur.
We gotta rap some Pokemon.
You just do the singing. I'll take care of the hard part.
Let's get it on.
Alright, here we go. So this is Venusaur, one of my favorite designs. I absolutely love this design. I think it's just an awesome creature. And straight away I knew that I wanted Venusaur's blue skin to really pop off the background, which is why the background is this orange color. It's obviously the opposite to, or relatively opposite on the color wheel to Venusaur's blue design. I took this design from, I think it was one of the original Pokedex designs. That I just think it's a really great pose. And with the last couple of Pokemon, they haven't really had any mouths besides Electrode, which I kind of just did some teeth on. I decided I'd go all the way and do a big gaping maw. Venusaur sometimes got a sort of lumbering, stoic design, which makes it all the more powerful when it does get up and roar. Venusaur, I think, is, well, it's part plant, right? So it's got this ancient quality to it. It's like a tree, an ancient tree that has seen the forest, has seen everything for centuries, and so it's really part of the environment that it's situated in. So I wanted that to come across. I wanted it to look really old, powerful, mysterious maybe. Now I'm not sure, but this may be an unpopular opinion, but I always thought of the original starters, the Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur, as dinosaurs. Now, obviously Charizard's a big dragon, sort of apex predator type dinosaur. Then you've got the sea creature, the big turtle, which is another reptile. So I always saw Venusaur as just another reptile, big, ancient, sort of powerful reptile that could compete with the other two. Even if it's not apex predator, sort of like Charizard, it's a big tank of a dinosaur that could take him on. And that's what was so fun about doing Venusaur, was that every time I've seen a realistic version of this Pokemon, it's all different. I've seen a giant lizard, like it takes on this really sort of chameleon almost look, and then I've seen frogs. I've seen so many different versions, and I always thought of him as a big dinosaur. So here I'm using an elephant brush, elephant texture brush. It's another one from Aaron Blaze. And normally I use a photo to overlay over the top. This is my first time using this brush, and it was a little bit of a challenge. If I was to go back and do it, I probably would have warped it a little bit more to the form, but as it was, I used it as a bit of a roadmap to map out all the creases and the wrinkles and the scales and whatever the texture was of this Pokemon. So, but a lot of it I actually painted over. So I just used it as kind of a guide to get me started, and then painted my own textures and lighting scenario over the top of it. And it ended up changing quite a bit throughout the piece. It was a big challenge, actually, using that brush, and I really couldn't decide how much detail I wanted to throw into it. And that's the challenge, right? The same rules apply for this brush as it does for any kind of overlay texture. You can't let it do all the work for you. You've actually got to work on it yourself. And to be honest, with the overlay textures and like the photos laying over the top, I don't usually like doing it. It does a little bit too much for me. It makes too many decisions for me. Sometimes I do need a little bit of a push to figure out where I want to go with the piece, but I don't want the entire piece decided for me. It's one of the reasons I don't think I can do photo bashing very well, because it's just photos, and yeah, there's a lot of decision making in that photo bashing process, but not really for me. It's not a style that I can get my head around. While I'm developing my own art skills, I do want to challenge myself with different kinds of mediums and styles and tools that have wildly different effects for any piece that you're working on. And that's certainly my challenge. Any piece that I'm working on, I never know for sure exactly what style I'm going to try to strive for, what I'm trying to achieve. It kind of happens as I'm working on it, and depending on what tool I'm using, the whole image is going to change. And like you can see here, I've just added on this extra part of his design with the the big armor on the back of it, kind of these folds, and that happens all the time. All the sorts of things change while I'm working on it. The tusks were kind of funny. What I did with the tusks was I looked up elephant tusks originally, but they didn't really work for me. I was using them as reference, but looking at the Pokedex entry, I had the 4 on the bottom, 2 on the top. I ended up going with walrus, and I looked at a whole bunch of photos of walrus tusks, and that actually really helped with designing these tusks. Even though they're kind of small, they were a bit of a challenge because I wanted them to look right. They're quite a prominent feature of the design. And then I was getting into the flower and the big palm leaves. It was kind of a hard decision for me because I really wanted Venusaur to take up the entire image. The design was it's this massive creature, and I really wanted it to fill the page. But at the same time, I was a little bit on the fence about how much of the flower to be able to include. I ended up keeping it the way it was, so you just got a hint of the flower. I'd love to revisit Venusaur again and do it from a different angle, but I think it really did work out the way I wanted it to. As if we had stumbled upon its domain in the middle of this forest, and we just catch this glimpse of this enormous creature. But it was a challenging piece. I mean, it was a bit difficult at this stage. I ended up finding the groove right about here where I decided to redo the eyes. The eyes just really weren't working for me at all. Added in a lot of more detail. I couldn't figure out where to go with some of the details, but then when I threw on some extra shadows, especially around the eyes, started adding in some more details to the nose, started playing around with those scales a little bit, then it really kind of hit me, and I hit a groove where I changed up the eyebrows, gave Venusaur much more reptilian eyes, changed the eyelids almost completely, and just kept working on the details there. Tiny details, little hints of light flickering off each little scale. And then right at the end, there was tons of experimenting with the background. So trying to figure out what kind of elements I was going to include, grass, trees, vines, all that sort of stuff. And then the idea of putting a body of water in front of him. So he's roaring at something, he's trying to take a drink, and now roaring at something that he sees, probably you. I thought it really made the piece. And that's it, guys. That's Venusaur. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really love doing this piece. Next week, I will be back with Rattata.
Gotta catch 'em all.